Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Community Focus here on Channel 6 TV. I'm Kenny Fogle, your host. Glad you can be with us tonight, and we always like to hone in on some problems that we've got in the area. And one of the problems, obviously, is a drug issue that we've been growing not only in Nelson County, but it's nationwide, worldwide. And one of the things I want to talk about is what's going on in some of our schools. And, schools provide education, and it's not always just reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's life issues. And Stacy Vitito. Stacy, first of all, welcome to the show. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
So you got your hands full as you're teaching or counseling. You're doing something right now that's affecting a lot of people's lives. And first of all, what is the title to the job you have?
I work with the Family Resource Youth Services Center. And this is my first year doing that, and I really like it so far. But basically, the Youth Services Center, we cover any need that would be like basic needs for the students. It could be substance abuse related needs, mental health needs. It could be helping them filling out the college applications or finding part-time jobs.
Well, the Family Resource Center, like you said, is very important because every school, pretty much every elementary school in the county has one. So when a child has some issues that's outside of the academic, that's probably the best place to turn. Even the backpack programs, several programs that most people may not be familiar with, you all deal with.
Yes.
Okay. Well, what I specifically want to talk about today is I know you've been involved with the, not to get into specifics, but drugs is becoming a huge issue, not only in, like I said, Nelson County in the world, but you've got to face this. You've got to face that kids, maybe the family, maybe an extended family, but they're getting exposed to the issue of drugs and opioids, if I can say that right,
Yes.
more at even a younger age than they ever were before. How do you deal with that? Is there a way to counsel kids or to sort of teach them, this is not the thing to do?
Right. Well, you're absolutely right. We have to face it. And talking about alcohol and drugs is not an easy thing to do. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. But that's the first step, is to actually start talking about it. So when you're talking about it with the kids, the first thing that I think is important is education for the kids, which is what we did last week with the Red Ribbon Week stuff with 2 of our high schools, was we actually provided drug education for our kids. And that's really important in my opinion, because these kids are making decisions and they don't know anything about these drugs.
Is it they don't know what the drug is, or they don't know what it does to them, or they just know it makes me feel good, so what could be bad about it? I mean, or is that all of that?
It could be a combination of. I will tell you, just through my experience and my education, I am a certified alcohol and drug counselor and a certified prevention specialist, that people use drugs because they're having trouble coping with different things in their life, whether it be as simple as boredom, whether it be depression symptoms, anxiety, peer pressure, low self-esteem, a number of things. So bottom line, people use because they're having trouble coping with something. And so to teach life skills type stuff in schools would be awesome. How to deal with anger issues, or how to deal with angry feelings, how to deal with feelings of sadness, anxiousness, how to deal with boredom. It could be as simple as you need to help your kids find hobbies or develop hobbies, things that interest you, things like that.
I know 15, 20 years ago it was a taboo to even mention mental health issues, but mental health is getting to be more, people are starting to understand it a little bit better now and understand that it may not always be a chemical imbalance. And like you said, maybe something as simple as, I know if I'm watching a basketball game, I'm going to get a little more angry than I normally am, but anger, depression, things of that nature, we're starting to recognize it a little bit more as an issue that before we just they're moody or something like that.
Right.
But it's a little more in depth now, I think, than it used to be.
Right. And then another reason for that is because you have a lot of babies that are being exposed to drugs and alcohol during pregnancy.
Yeah.
And so they're born with
already addicted before they're born. Ooh.
Absolutely. And then you have kids that are being raised by parents who are addicted to drugs, and so they're not getting the right kind of parenting and those kinds of things.
And if they see parents, and a lot of times, I've heard parents say, well, it was prescribed by a doctor, so it must be okay. But they're sharing their medicine with somebody else. So I know a lot of times, where do you get the medicine at? Well, it's right there in your medicine cabinet for many kids. Right.
And so it's not okay. If it's not prescribed to you, it's not okay and it's not safe. There's so many factors that go into if a medication is safe, based on your own health conditions, based on your body and weight, based on all kinds of different things. So you should only take it if it's prescribed and as prescribed.
Yeah, and I know opioids, that's the new word now. I didn't know what an opioid was here a few years ago, but apparently that's painkillers. Painkillers of sorts, and a few years ago, doctors apparently were over-prescribing them to some degree because they didn't see the danger in them, and it's led into other things. And I guess that's something you got to be careful about too when you're talking to your own doctor sometimes, is what's your pain level?
Yes, absolutely, and especially for those people that have addiction and maybe are in recovery. Those people specifically need to just be upfront with their doctor about their history with addiction. And so when they do go in for surgery for whatever reason, or if they do have an injury, that their doctor is working with them so that they're not prescribing something that could throw them back into relapse.
In schools, are you targeting certain children, or is it just is this a counseling or education for every single kid in the school?
Of course, I'm new. I just started in August with the schools, but I've been around, the prevention, intervention, treatment world for a long while, over a decade. But with the schools in particular, it is just a general for everybody kind of thing at this point. We did do the Red Ribbon thing last week, which was our whole Drug Prevention Awareness Week. We did a lot of cool stuff. It was in the paper. It was actually true prevention. Giving the kids true education about drugs and alcohol, and actually we talked about like what are some coping skills, why people use, and it was a really good thing for the kids. So it's just basically just a general education for the kids.
Okay. I know back when I was in high school, and this was a long time ago, well, they come in, they say, now don't smoke, but then the school actually provided smoking areas for students, and they say don't drink and drive, but then again, and it got through. It got through to us, and obviously I think smoking is down today, and drinking and driving I think has slowed down to some degree. Are you reaching the kids? I guess is the question. Can you tell if the kids, is the light coming on when you're giving this education?
Yes, I can tell you from my experience last week, especially with rolling out that curriculum with the kids in 2 of our high schools. I personally taught the lessons at the academy, which is our alternative school. And when I was going through the lessons, it was like an aha moment for them, and they couldn't believe some of the things that we were discussing. And so I really do feel like that it did benefit them, and they actually did learn something from it. I think the schools are becoming more aware of the problems and the need to address it. For instance, in one of our other schools, we're working on developing a substance abuse or a drug prevention program because they're going to revamp the substance abuse policy for the district, and so and that might lead to more positive drug screens and stuff on kids. And so I'm working with the schools to develop a drug prevention program for that.
What age levels are you looking at? I know back years ago we were all talking high school. It's getting earlier now, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I personally work in the high school, so it would be Thomas Nelson County High School in the academy. But I will tell you, I did work at Bloomfield Middle last year in the classroom, and I could tell you there's people using drugs at middle school level. Even in treatment, when I did treatment, I worked at CommuniCare, an outpatient clinic. You would work with people that started using drugs at 6 years old. 6.
Yeah.
That's the age of my little girl.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah.
That being the case, but it is.
Well, like I said, it just blows you away trying to think, how do you reach a kid like that? And hopefully you reach them at the earliest age possible, because the peer pressure, they're going to, if you reach 1 or 2, hopefully they'll reach other kids, or they'll reach their own family. Go home and say, hey, Mom, Dad, this isn't right. We need to do something.
You're exactly right. If you don't give them the education, a lot of these kids, especially those that unfortunately do grow up where their parents are using drugs and they grow up in that kind of environment, that becomes their norm. You know, they don't
Yeah.
see as that as anything wrong with that. And so if you're providing education early on, then they can realize that that's not maybe how you're supposed to live.
Now, I know a lot of this has to be confidential because if you identify somebody or somebody comes to you, I mean, there is personal one-on-one counseling to do what you can to do. I don't know if you put them in rehab or you just give them counseling or how do you, if I came to you with a problem, what would your first response be?
Well, in the setting that I work in right now, which is the school setting, if somebody came to me and they disclosed that they were using, I would have to refer them on to our school psychologist. And we would have to work on talking with the parents, and it also depends on the level, the severity of the problem.
Yeah. And
so you have to kind of assess that, you know, what is the severity of the problem, and link them to resources, talk with the parents. Maybe a CPS referral would be in the works. I'm not sure. It just depends on what the circumstances are.
And at some point, is there any point where law enforcement is involved? I mean, I know sometime you probably have to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you find drugs on a person, law enforcement is definitely involved.
Yeah.
And actually, I think with the policies, of course, I'm new, so, but I think that if there is suspicion that someone has drugs on them, we have to automatically call the law enforcement.
Okay, well, I think they're calling us right now. But we'll appreciate you coming in here because I know this is a very vital program. And if parents or somebody wants to learn more about this, they've got a concern. Obviously, they want to contact you because, you know, parents are overwhelmed. I mean, there's no question about it. There's parents out there, maybe they're doing drugs or maybe they think their kids are doing drugs. They've got a resource they can reach out to.
There are some warning signs that they can look for. Can I read you some of those?
Sure, absolutely. Let's see if I can turn this phone off while you're doing that.
Okay. And these are pretty self-explanatory, but these are just signs for the parents to know, you know, if, you know, to kind of recognize if their child might have a substance abuse problem. Obviously, if they start behaving differently for no reason, if they're withdrawn, if they become hostile, if they feel really tired and depressed more often, if they have a change in peer group, so a change in friends. A carelessness with grooming, so they just don't really care about fixing their hair, putting their makeup on and stuff like that, taking baths. Decline in school grades is a big warning sign. Missing classes or skipping school. Loss of interest in favorite activities, so they, you know, maybe they enjoy football or basketball or volleyball, but then they just kind of drop those activities. That's a warning sign. Change in eating or sleeping habits. And deteriorating relationships with family and friends, so a lot of arguments and conflicts.
I know a lot of people may dismiss that as saying, well, you know, that's just a child going from childhood to teenage years.
Right.
But
it's often mistakes like
it's
that.
often mistaken, I guess. And that's what I was saying, because parents send their children to school to learn, but obviously I'm sure a lot of parents are concerned, you know, because they're mixing in with a crowd that the kids may pick up bad habits, and that's where you all come in.
Right.
So again, you know, that's if somebody wants to reach out to you, they can. Are you available to parents as well as the students?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, we have a website. It's called the Fusion Youth Services Center for the high schools. For the middle schools and elementary schools, it's something different. It's a different Youth Services Center. But if you want to get in touch with Youth Services Center, just contact the school and ask for the Youth Services Center.
And a school psychologist available. I mean,
absolutely.
It's amazing what's available now that wasn't years ago. And what we're understanding now, we're understanding the issue of drugs and mental health and anxiety and things of that nature. Where years ago we just dismissed it as just the way somebody is and no big deal. But
right.
We're not accepting that anymore as the norm.
Yeah.
So, well, Stacy, I do appreciate you coming on here and telling people what's going on, because, you know, kids, it's a very vital thing for parents to know that their kids are in school and they're safe and there's somebody watching out for them. And if something goes wrong, there's somebody there to help out a little bit. Not only them, but the parents. So it's a wonderful resource you're providing.
There are also some prevention programs that could help if anybody's interested. There's the PATH Coalition, which is community members in Nelson County that work against or work for substance abuse prevention. The Regional Prevention Center through CommuniCare is located in E-Town, but they have people that come, you know, to Nelson County. They're always open to help, you know, consult with groups to do drug prevention programs. And then there's the Kentucky Moms Matter, which is a program that I used to work with CommuniCare, and it works specifically with women who have substance abuse problems during pregnancy.
Well,
And
like I said, drugs are becoming a huge issue, and I think we're afraid we're about to lose the war on this and lose the battle, but
no, I will not accept it.
that's not going to happen. Well, good. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear we're going to win this one.
Yes, we are.
All right. Well, again, if somebody wants to get a hold of you or anybody, they call the local schools, or how they get a hold of you?
Call the local school at the Youth Services Center. You can ask for me, Stacy Vidito. My email is Stacy, STACIE.Vidito, VITTITOW, @nelson.kyschools.us.
Okay, or give the schools a call and ask for Stacy. And again, we appreciate all you're doing, not only at the Family Resource Centers, but doing the counseling and the drug prevention and education, because again, that is, I think, very vital, because we've got a lot of young people out there that's going to be moving on and hopefully to be productive to society, but not only that, happy and well-adjusted and going to live a good life.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Well, Stacy, we appreciate you being here, and thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you so
and
much.
And if you have anything else we want to do, we'll bring you back in sometime, and maybe every now and then we'll just do a little report card on how things are going.
That sounds wonderful.
All right. Stacy Vidito with the Nelson County School Systems, helping with the drug issues and many other issues as well through the Family Resource Center. But today we're concentrating on drug education and prevention, and again, that's all of us have that responsibility, whether we're parents, grandparents, or just know somebody. Drugs are not a good thing, so we're going to do what we can to make a difference. So stick around. A lot more to come here on Community Focus, Channel 6 TV. We'll be right back.